Simon Cowell collapsed. Not metaphorically, not dramatically for television. He actually collapsed, his knees buckled, his body went limp, and he fell backward into his chair before security could reach him. 3,000 people in the London Palladium gasped as one. Amanda Holden screamed. The cameras kept rolling, capturing the moment that would become the most controversial, most watched, and most unbelievable moment in Britain's Got Talent history. What caused Simon Cowell, a man famous for maintaining composure through every situation, to physically faint on live television? A DNA test, and a 28-year-old woman named Rebecca Walsh, who had just revealed she was his sister, a sister he never knew existed. It was Saturday evening. The Britain's Got Talent semi-finals were broadcasting live to 12 million viewers across the UK. The energy in the Palladium was electric, with the particular tension that comes from live television. No second takes, no editing, everything happening in real time with millions watching. Simon sat at the judges' table in his signature black shirt and jeans, flanked by Amanda Holden, Alicia Dixon, and David Walliams. They'd already seen 6 acts that evening: dancers, singers, a comedian, a magician. Standard semi-final fare, each act fighting for a spot in the final. Backstage, in a private production office away from the main holding areas, Rebecca Walsh sat with the show's executive producer and 2 lawyers. She'd been separated from the other contestants for the past 3 hours, ever since she'd arrived at the theater and handed the production team an envelope that contained documents no talent show had ever received before: DNA test results, birth certificates, private investigator reports, and a legal affidavit. The documents told a story so explosive that the producers had spent the last 2 hours verifying everything, consulting with lawyers, and debating whether to allow what was about to happen. Rebecca was 28 years old, tall and slender, with dark hair and striking blue-green eyes that seemed to shift color in different light. She had high cheekbones, a sharp jawline, and a way of holding herself that suggested both confidence and underlying nervousness. She'd been a professional singer for 6 years, performing in West End productions and touring with various musical theater companies. She had a beautiful voice, genuine talent, and absolutely no need to manufacture a backstory for sympathy. But the backstory she carried was real, devastating, and about to detonate on live television. "Mrs. Walsh," the executive producer said carefully, reviewing the documents for the 3rd time, "I need to be absolutely clear. Once you go out on that stage and say what you're planning to say, there's no taking it back. This will change your life. This will change Simon's life. This will become the biggest entertainment story of the year. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" Rebecca looked at the DNA report in her hands, the one that read 99.99% probability of half-sibling relationship in stark black text. "I've known for 3 years," she said quietly. 3 years of watching him on television, knowing we share the same father, knowing he has no idea I exist. I didn't plan to do it this way. I tried to reach him privately. Letters, emails, messages through his management, everything got filtered out. Nobody believed me. This is my only chance to make him listen, to make him know the truth. The producer looked at the legal team. They nodded slowly. Everything Rebecca had provided checked out. The DNA test had been conducted by a reputable laboratory. The birth certificate listed Eric Cowell as the father. The timeline matched. The private investigator's report had verified details that would be impossible to fake. This wasn't a publicity stunt or a delusional fan. This was real, and it was about to explode. "All right," the producer said, standing up. "But understand this. We're going to verify everything on air. We have our own experts ready. If there's any doubt, any inconsistency, we'll expose it immediately." Rebecca nodded. "That's all I want. The truth." On stage, Ant and Dec were introducing the next act. The producers had made a decision. Let Rebecca perform first, as planned. Let her sing. Then, if she chose to reveal her story, they would verify it in real time with the experts they'd assembled. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dec announced, "please welcome our next act, Rebecca Walsh." Rebecca walked onto the massive stage, and the audience's applause was warm but not overwhelming. She was relatively unknown, just another hopeful performer among thousands who auditioned each year. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy. Her dark hair was pulled back. She carried no props, just a microphone, and the weight of a secret that had defined her entire life. Simon looked up from consulting his notes. His first impression was automatic. Late 20s, professional appearance, probably has West End experience, likely a strong technical singer, but might lack emotional depth. He settled back in his chair, arms crossed, ready to deliver his assessment. "Hello," Rebecca said, her voice clear and steady. "My name is Rebecca Walsh. I'm 28 years old, from London, and I've been a professional singer for 6 years. Lovely to meet you, Rebecca, Amanda said warmly. What are you going to sing for us tonight? Rebecca paused, and something flickered across her face, nervousness mixed with determination. I'm going to sing The Truth by Lizzo. But before I do, I need to tell you why I chose this song. I need to tell you why I'm really here. Simon's eyes sharpened. Go ahead, he said. Rebecca took a deep breath. 28 years ago, my mother Julie Walsh had a brief relationship with a man she worked with in the music industry. She was a secretary at a recording company. He was a young producer, ambitious, focused on his career. The relationship lasted about 3 months before he ended it to focus on his work. My mother discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks after they broke up. She tried to tell him, but he'd already moved on. New job, new projects, new life. She left messages that went unreturned. She sent letters that were never answered. Eventually, she gave up trying to reach him. She raised me alone. The audience was quiet now, sensing this was more than a typical sob story. Amanda leaned forward. Alicia's expression had shifted from encouraging to concerned, and Simon remained perfectly still, his face unreadable. My mother never spoke badly about my father, Rebecca continued. She always said he was focused on his career, that the timing was wrong, that he probably never got her messages. She said if he'd known about me, he might have been involved, but she also said maybe it was better that he didn't know, that his life went one way, and ours went another. That must have been difficult, Alicia said gently, growing up without a father. It was, Rebecca acknowledged, but my mother was amazing. She gave me everything. Love, support, opportunities. She encouraged my singing. She worked multiple jobs to pay for my training. She was at every performance, every competition, every milestone. She was enough. Your mother sounds wonderful, Amanda said, tears already in her eyes. Is she here tonight? Rebecca's face crumbled slightly before she controlled it. No. She passed away 18 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. She was 54 years old. The audience made a collective sound of sympathy. Simon's expression softened slightly. I'm very sorry for your loss, he said. Thank you, Rebecca said. Before she died, she told me something she'd never told me before. She told me my father's name. She'd kept it secret my entire life, thinking it was protecting everyone. But as she was dying, she decided I deserved to know the truth. She gave me his name, and told me that if I ever wanted to find him, I should, that I deserved to know where I came from. The production booth was in controlled chaos. Cameras were repositioned. The legal team was on standby. The DNA expert they'd hired was ready to appear via video link. Did you find him? David asked quietly. Your father. Rebecca looked directly at Simon Cowell. Yes, I found him. It took me 6 months of research, hiring a private investigator, tracking down old employment records from the company where my mother worked in 1995. But I found him, and then I found out who he'd become, what he'd achieved. Simon's expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes suggested he was starting to understand. Amanda looked between Rebecca and Simon, confusion dawning into realization. My father's name, Rebecca said, her voice steady despite the tears now streaming down her face, is Eric Cowell. The audience gasped. The connection was made instantly. Eric Cowell, Simon's father, who had died in 1999. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. David sat back in his chair, stunned. Alicia's eyes went wide, and Simon Cowell sat frozen, his face drained of color, staring at Rebecca with an expression of complete disbelief. That's not possible, Simon said, his voice barely above a whisper. My father would have told me. I have proof, Rebecca interrupted gently. I have my birth certificate listing Eric Cowell as my father. I have letters my mother saved from him. I have photos of them together from the recording company where they worked. And I have DNA test results. DNA tests, Simon repeated, his voice hollow. You can't have DNA tests. My father has been dead for 23 years. I know, Rebecca said. I couldn't test against him, but I could test against his living child. Against you, Mr. Cowell. The studio fell into absolute silence. How? Simon managed. I never gave you DNA. You didn't have to give it directly, Rebecca said. 3 months ago, you appeared at a charity event where attendees received commemorative wine glasses. You drank from one. I was there, working as a server. After you left, I kept your glass. I had the DNA extracted from the saliva residue and tested against my own DNA. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. But Rebecca wasn't finished. The results came back 2 months ago. She pulled an envelope from inside her dress. 99.99% probability of half-sibling relationship. We share the same father. Eric Cowell is your father and my father, which makes us brother and sister. Simon stood up slowly, his movements mechanical. This is insane. How do I know this is real? How do I know you're not? We've verified it, the executive producer's voice came through the studio speakers. In the past 3 hours, we've had independent experts review Ms. Walsh's documentation. The DNA test was conducted by Gene Lab UK, a certified laboratory. We've had our own genetic expert examine the results remotely. The birth certificate has been verified as authentic through the General Register Office. The employment records confirm Eric Cowell worked there in 1995, and that Julie Walsh was employed as his secretary. The timeline matches. The documentation is legitimate. The camera cut to a split screen showing a video link with Dr. Sarah Chen, a genetics expert from Imperial College London. I've reviewed the DNA analysis, Dr. Chen said professionally. Based on the genetic markers present, the probability of half-sibling relationship between Simon Cowell and Rebecca Walsh is 99.99%. This is as close to certainty as genetic science can provide. They share approximately 25% of their DNA, consistent with half-siblings. There is no doubt they share a biological father. Simon was gripping the judge's table so hard his knuckles were white. My father would have told me. If he had another child, he would have told me. Maybe he didn't know, Rebecca said softly. My mother tried to tell him. She called his office repeatedly. She sent letters. But this was 1995. No email, no cell phones like today. Messages got lost. Letters went unanswered. Maybe he never got them. Maybe he didn't want to deal with it. I don't know. I'll never know, because he died when I was just 3 years old. But the facts are the facts. Eric Cowell had an affair with my mother. She got pregnant. He moved on, and I was born. Your sister. Half-sister, Simon corrected automatically, then looked shocked that he'd said it, as if the correction meant accepting the truth. I need to verify this myself, Simon said. I need my own tests. I can't just accept. We anticipated that. The producer's voice came through again. We have a genetic testing team on standby backstage. If you consent, they can take a DNA sample from you right now, and we can conduct a new test with both samples collected under controlled conditions. Results would take 3 to 5 days. Simon looked at Rebecca, really looked at her for the first time, and that's when he saw it. The eyes, blue-green, shifting in the light, the exact same color as his own, the jawline sharp, defined, identical to the one he saw every morning. The resemblance wasn't obvious at first glance, but once you looked for it, it was undeniable. Oh my God, Simon whispered. You have his eyes, my father's eyes. Rebecca nodded, crying openly now. I've been told I look like him. I've seen photos. I have his eyes and his smile. Simon's hands were shaking. How long have you known? How long have you been watching me on television, knowing we were related? 3 years, since my mother told me before she died. I've watched every episode since then, knowing you were my brother, and you had no idea I existed. I tried to reach you, Simon. I sent letters to your management. I sent emails. Everything got filtered out. Nobody believed me. They thought I was a crazy fan, so I auditioned for your show. Because I knew if I could get in front of you, if I could tell you face to face, you'd listen. You'd have to listen. Why? Simon asked, his voice breaking. Why now? Why this way? Why humiliate me on live television? Because you're impossible to reach any other way, Rebecca said simply. And because I'm dying. The studio fell silent again. That sentence hung in the air, changing everything one more time. What? Amanda whispered. Rebecca smiled sadly. I have the same cancer that killed my mother. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. I was diagnosed 9 months ago. The chemotherapy isn't working. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I don't have time to wait for lawyers and managers and proper channels. I needed to meet you. I needed you to know I exist before I stop existing. Simon Cowell made a sound that was half sob, half gasp. His face contorted with emotion he couldn't control. No, he said, that's not. You can't. I'm so sorry, Rebecca said through her tears. I didn't want to do it this way. I didn't want to hurt you or shock you or make this into a spectacle. But I ran out of time and options. I just needed you to know. I needed to meet my brother before it was too late. I needed to sing on this stage, not for fame or money, but because you're a judge here, and for one night I could stand here and you could hear me, really hear me. Your sister. Simon's knees buckled. They just gave out. He fell backward, and if the chair hadn't been directly behind him, he would have hit the floor. His eyes rolled back slightly. His skin went gray. Amanda screamed. Alessia jumped up. David shouted for help. Medical personnel rushed on stage. They surrounded Simon, checking his vitals. The cameras kept rolling because this was live television and there was nowhere to cut. After 30 seconds, Simon opened his eyes. He was conscious but overwhelmed. I'm okay, he said weakly. I need a minute. He looked at Rebecca, still on stage, crying silently. Come here, he said hoarsely. Please. Rebecca walked toward the judge's table on shaking legs. When she reached Simon, He stood slowly, steadied by Amanda's hand. For a long moment, brother and sister stared at each other. "Let me see the documents," Simon said. "Everything." The producer brought out Rebecca's envelope. Simon reviewed each document with shaking hands. The birth certificate, the DNA results, the private investigator's report, photos of Eric Cowell with Julie Walsh in 1995, letters in his father's handwriting. With each document, Simon's expression shifted from denial to acceptance. "These letters," Simon said. "That's his handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. He wrote to her a few times after they broke up," Rebecca said quietly, apologizing, saying he needed to focus on his career. "The last letter was dated 2 weeks before my mother would have known she was pregnant. She tried to reach him after that, but he never responded." Simon read the letters, and with each word in his father's handwriting, the reality became undeniable. "Why didn't she try harder?" "Because she had pride," Rebecca said gently, "and because he'd made it clear he wanted to move forward, not backward, so she let him go. She raised me alone, and she never said a bad word about him." Simon looked at the DNA results again. 99.99%. Half siblings. He looked up at Rebecca, tears in his eyes. "My father had an affair. He got someone pregnant. He had a daughter he never knew about. And now that daughter is standing in front of me, telling me she's dying, and I have 6 months to know her before." He couldn't finish. He just stood there, completely undone. "I'm so sorry," Rebecca whispered. "I had to make you hear me. I had to make you believe me, and I'm running out of time." Simon did something that shocked everyone. He stepped around the judge's table and pulled Rebecca into a hug. Not polite, but desperate, clinging to a truth he couldn't quite process. "I have a sister," he said, his voice breaking. "I've had a sister for 28 years, and didn't know. How is that possible?" "Because life is messy," Rebecca said. "Because people make mistakes. Because communication fails. Because your father probably never knew, and my mother was too proud to force the issue." They stood there while 12 million people watched, brother and sister meeting for the first time. When they separated, Simon looked at the cameras. "Stop the show," he said. "End the broadcast. This isn't entertainment. This is my life. This is my family. This is private. Right now, I need the cameras off." For the first time in Britain's Got Talent history, the live broadcast cut early. Viewers saw Simon's devastated face. Then the screen went black. What viewers didn't see was what happened next. With cameras off, Simon and Rebecca sat on the stage edge and talked. For 2 hours they sat there while the audience was ushered out, while producers dealt with the nightmare this created, while the world exploded on social media. Simon asked questions. Rebecca answered. She showed him more photos of his father with her mother. She told him stories, his sense of humor, his ambition, his kindness. She told him about her childhood, her career, her diagnosis, and Simon told her about their father, the man she'd never known, his final years, his business success, his pride in Simon, his death in 1999. He told her about siblings she'd never met, her half-brothers and half-sister. "They need to know you exist," Simon said. "Will they believe me, after we do another DNA test?" "They'll have to. The science doesn't lie." Simon paused. "I want you to meet them. I want you to know your family. However much time you have left, and we're going to fight to extend it. You're going to spend it as part of this family, as my sister." Rebecca cried, the tears of someone alone finally finding where they belonged. The next morning, the story was on every front page. Simon's secret sister. DNA bombshell on live TV. Social media exploded. Conspiracy theorists claimed it was staged. Defenders insisted no one would fake this. Ethics boards questioned DNA obtained without consent, but Simon released a statement. "Yesterday, I learned I have a sister I never knew existed. The news was shocking, but the facts are undeniable. DNA testing will be conducted under proper supervision to confirm what I know in my heart. Rebecca Walsh is my half-sister. My father had a relationship in 1995 that resulted in Rebecca's birth, though I believe he never knew. Rebecca is terminally ill with pancreatic cancer. I intend to spend her remaining time getting to know my sister and ensuring she receives the best medical care. This is a private family matter. Rebecca will not continue in the competition as it would be inappropriate. Thank you for understanding." The DNA test was conducted 3 days later under strict supervision. 5 days later, results came back. 99.99% probability of half-sibling relationship. It was official, undeniable. Simon introduced Rebecca to his family. His mother, Julie, 90 years old, was shocked but welcomed Rebecca with tears. Simon's siblings were stunned but accepting. Simon used his resources to get Rebecca appointments with the best oncologists worldwide. Teams in London, specialists in Germany, experimental treatments in America. Some showed promise, others failed. The cancer was aggressive. 6 months passed. Rebecca lived to see her 29th birthday, celebrated with her newfound family. Simon was there, holding her hand, making her laugh with stories about their father, 8 months after the broadcast, Rebecca Walsh died peacefully in a private hospital, surrounded by family. Simon was holding her hand, telling her one more story about their father, making sure the last thing she heard was that she was loved, she was family, she belonged. The funeral was private, but Simon's eulogy was later released. "My sister taught me that truth matters more than comfort," Simon said. "She taught me that family isn't just who you grow up with, it's who claims you and who you claim back." Rebecca didn't have to tell me who she was. She could have lived her remaining months in private. But she chose truth over comfort. She chose connection over isolation. For 8 months I had a sister, and for the rest of my life, I'll be grateful for those 8 months, even as I mourn the 28 years we lost. The Britain's Got Talent episode never aired in full. The broadcast had cut away before Rebecca could sing, but clips circulated online, debated endlessly. Some criticized Rebecca's method. Others defended her desperate need to be acknowledged before time ran out. Ethics questions persisted, but everyone agreed they'd witnessed something unprecedented. Not entertainment, but reality itself crashing into a television studio. Simon was changed by knowing Rebecca. He became less harsh, more empathetic. He established the Rebecca Walsh Foundation to help terminal patients pursue final dreams and connect with estranged family. He kept every letter, every photo, every memento. Every year on the anniversary, Simon releases a statement remembering his sister, not the drama of how they met, but Rebecca herself, her courage, her voice, her determination to be known before she ceased to exist, because that's what it was really about. Not DNA tests or shocking revelations or viral moments. It was about a dying woman who needed to be seen by her brother before it was too late. About a man who thought he knew his family completely, learning that blood ties exist in unexpected places. About the messy, complicated truth that sometimes the people who should have been in our lives all along only appear when time is running out. Rebecca Walsh existed. She was Simon Cowell's half-sister. She stood on that stage not for fame, but for family, for acknowledgement, for the chance to be known by her brother before cancer took that possibility away. And for 8 months she was known, she was claimed, she was family. That's not scandal or spectacle. That's love compressed into time remaining. That's what happens when someone is brave enough to demand their place in a family that didn't know they existed. Simon fainted when he learned he had a sister, but he stood back up, opened his arms and welcomed her home. For 8 months they were family, and those 8 months mattered more than the 28 years they'd missed, because it's not about how long you have someone, it's about claiming them while you can. It's about truth over comfort. It's about love, especially when time is running out. That's Rebecca's legacy. That's what Simon learned. That's what 12 million people witnessed the night a DNA test stopped Britain's Got Talent and started something more important, a family being made whole, even as one of its members was preparing to leave. Character says 24,997.